Hello, welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm, brought to you by funkinstuff.net. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am Scott Goldfine, your host, musicologist, and author of Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk. If you don't have your copy, get on over to Amazon and get it, for God's sake. What's keeping you? You'll enjoy it. Whether you're watching or listening, as always, I thank you very much for your continued interest and support. My guest today is singer, guitarist, composer, producer Curt Jones, best known for his contributions to funk giant Slave's classic albums Just a Touch of Love and Stone Jam, and then going on to front 7 albums for Aurra and its relaunch Deja. With the support of Slave's so-called fearless leader, producer and multi-instrumentalist Steve Washington, Aurra was a spin-off that shot out of the gates in the early 1980s with the funky smash hits Are You Single and Make Up Your Mind. Those songs also featured former Slave vocalist and longtime Jones friend Sterlina Young. In the 1990s, Jones went largely off the radar, but came back with a vengeance to deliver his first solo album in 2006 called 360 Degrees. He followed that up with the epically diverse and ambitious double CD Solo in 2010, and most recently in 2015 he came out with another varied and strong collection called simply 3. And with songs on it like Lone Funkateer, you can bet Jones has not forgotten how to keep it groovy, although he's still quite adept also at soul and R&B. And if you check out his clips on YouTube, you'll find out that he's really ferocious on guitar, or if you catch him live, if you're fortunate enough to catch Curt live. I caught up with him for an in-depth discussion that swings from New Jersey to Ohio to Texas to Minnesota funk, R&B, and a very good time. So here's my conversation with Curt Jones. Stick around. It gets pretty in-depth. Enjoy. I'm so very pleased to welcome to Truth and Rhythm singer, composer, guitarist Curt Jones, best known for his success with one of the mightiest funk bands of all time, Slave, and its offshoot, Aurra, later known as Deja. Curt, how are you this fine February 2018 early evening?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. So glad to have you.
Good. Good.
Now, where you're coming from, are you in Texas?
I'm in Texas right now. Yes. Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been out there?
I'd say about 3 years. Yeah. 3 years since 2014, summer of 2014, when I actually moved down. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure how you'll feel about me after I share this, but I am a lifelong Cowboys fan.
Well, that's all right. I'm my buddies in Minnesota know I've been a Viking fan because I surprised them when I got to Minnesota. I think I knew as much about the Vikings in the old days as they did. They were shocked, but that's all right. I mean, I'm an NFL fan first, so
Good.
I appreciate anybody that plays the game well.
Heck of a game this past weekend.
Yeah, it was really.
That
A
was
lot of soap opera drama going on right now
yeah.
afterwards.
It's almost like a video game, that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you ready to mix it up with some questions?
sure am. Yeah.
All right. Well, first, Curt, I want to get a foundation of where you came from. Where were you born, and what was childhood like? And I know you had a musical family, a bit of a musical background. So let's talk about that foundation a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in New Jersey, and it's actually born in Newark, New Jersey, but was raised in Linden, New Jersey, and all my hometown folks in Linden. Uh, Came up there and went to school there. Played sports in school with my buddies, and then started bands and got into music. But like I said, like you just reminded, everybody that I have a musical family, and it was in my family line long before I even got here. My grandfather on my mother's side. Herschel Davenport was leader of a big band called Davenport's Blue Rhythm Band, and he played a bunch of instruments. He played so many instruments, and he uh, and he worked and played. And at that time, this is a long time ago. You're talking about early 1900s, and he had his own radio station. I mean,
Wow.
I don't know too many African Americans that could pull that off back then. But he did that with the band, and in his band, he had let me see, I'll think of it in a few. But he had a blue rhythm band, and then his daughters were uh, my mother's sisters, the Davenport sisters. They performed, and then they signed, and they were with Motown when Motown first started. It was a subsidiary of Motown called Tri-Fi Records, and they cut a bunch of records with that. And they knew Spinners, Marvin Gaye, everybody that was there. That was when Motown was really just starting out. I mean, as my aunt would put it, everybody ate out of the same pot of beans. It was like that kind of getting it going thing. And
Mhm.
she knew Marvin, and she knew Harvey Fuqua from the Moonglows, who got Marvin to join the Moonglows when he first left home and toured with them. And Harvey was managing my aunts at the time and was working with them.
Mhm.
Uh, and so they recorded, they played and toured and did a bunch of great music. And they were there was this was a time when they were doing it that I was very young. I was like maybe 5, 6, and two of my aunts came out to Jersey because they were all from Western Pennsylvania. My mother's side of the family is from right outside of Pittsburgh in the valley, Monongahela, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And so when I was about 5 or 6, two of my aunts came out to Jersey, and they were right I think in the next town, Elizabeth, New Jersey. And they'd come over and rehearse in our basement. Uh, My dad and my mom let them come over and rehearse, and there were one, two, let's see, one, two, three, four of them. But my Aunt Penny, the one she sang, they all sang. My Aunt Penny sang and played guitar. She had electric guitar. So when they rehearsed in our basement, I'd go down in the basement and sit right next to her, and I'd be watching her with the guitar. And it was just, I was like drawn to it every time. They would rehearse. I just wanted to sit next to her because she had the guitar. And I don't know. I think about a year after that, I was around 7 years old. I'd asked my dad if he thought Santa would bring me a guitar. 7 years old, Christmas morning, there was an electric guitar there. So it's an old Sears Silvertone. A lot of guitarists still like those guitars, and they still sound good to the day. And they came with a case with the amplifier built in the case. And so many guitarists that I've heard from and know of started with the same thing. And those things are I'm gonna put some work into it. I still have it. I'm gonna put some work into it and get it so it's playable again, and because they sound great. But yeah, that's my the Davenport sisters was Penny Toms, Sylvia Davenport, uh, Hazel. It was Hazel Davenport at the time, and Norma Davenport. And, they they sang and played and inspired me. Now, fast forward to that. Fast forward from there. Later on, the first year I took lessons, I took lessons, and then I put the guitar down for a little while because I was still a kid. I was 8. I wanted to join the Cub Scouts, do stuff my friends were doing. I felt like I was missing out. And then get to junior high school, and about 12 years old, and I go in the auditorium and they're rehearsing. I'm hearing all this music, and I was always aware of the orchestra because I in elementary school I tried different instruments. I played flute, clarinet, and kettle drums and all kinds of things. In those days, the music program was still in school, so you can take lessons almost on anything you want. I felt like it was a playground. I was just hopping from instrument to instrument, just trying things because it was so much fun.
Mhm.
And got there to the auditorium in junior high school, and these guys were a rhythm section. They were playing guitars and bass and drums. And the program in our junior high school at the time was the rock opera Tommy, and a couple of guys, and they were playing. And one guy was playing. I'll never forget him. He's like a legend in Linden where I came up. He's a great musician. His name is Mitch Eisenberg. He was playing a Les Paul, and they were playing the rock opera Tommy. He was playing the underture and the overture, and they were playing. And they sounded awesome. I don't know. Something just a light went off inside of me, and I said, "Man, I got a guitar at home. I could do that, you know." And I think I went started from there and picked it back up and just decided I wasn't going to put it down anymore. You know?
So you got into bands in middle school and high school. When did you start kind of playing with others?
Right, and middle school, and we started. Some of me and my friends, some of the guys, we started joining, creating bands and doing things, and playing little talent shows, a lot of stuff like that. High school is really when it started to kick in. Uh, we had a small version of a band that was up the street from me, and then me and a couple buddies that lived right around the corner from each other on my end of the street had our little faction, and so we kind of went up and joined with them. They had drums, bass, and we had the vocals, and I had guitar, and so we went up and joined it. And one of my other buddy that wound up playing drums later on, he was playing percussion and singing in this band. We played with them, had a good run with that. That was called the Midnight Movement, which was back in the day. Had those names for the bands, and then we played, played school functions, and it had a good sound. And people really liked it because we were playing a lot of the stuff of the day. In those days, we were learning like stuff, Cool in the Gang stuff from way back in the day. It was early Cool in the Gang stuff. Like go back to Who's Going to Take the Weight and all of that stuff. We were learning that stuff and playing that, and
Did,
and
did
then
you have horns in the band?
no, we didn't have horns in that band, but we still played it anyway. We just played what we wanted to play, and made it happen. And then we separated from that, and then formed our own band. And the drummer and I, my friend Brian Stevens, he and I said, "Man, we're going to start our own. We're going to do our own thing." We called it Symphonic Express. Started Had a few members that started out with us and went for a good while, and then it kind of changed. A few members came in, a few members left, but we stayed. We were the core. And the guitar player that was in the Midnight Movement, my buddy Craig Dotson, he came with us. He came once we joined that. He came on down with us, and it was the three of us that were the core of that band for a long time. And then we later on we met a keyboard player that we were totally in awe of and still in awe of to this day. He was brilliant then and still brilliant. His name is Kevin Grady. And he we joined him. We had a couple of different bass players, came in and
Still,
out.
still in New Jersey?
Yes, still in New Jersey. But then we got a chance to get that's at that period of time, that's when my aunt Penny stepped in. She saw how serious we were, and she started working with us, and she started managing us, and she started showing us how to not just play, but how to go put on a show and how to be professional and work ethic and serious practicing. I mean, we went to school, came home from school, whatever we had to do homework wise, but we got down in the basement and we rehearsed for hours until it was time to go to bed and go to school the next day. And we did a lot of work like that. And she got us in the clubs. We were playing clubs and getting booked more and more and more. Mm. And it just started taking on momentum of its own. We got a van and, had equipment and everything. It was just ongoing. So those were good days. We learned a lot. I got a real good education about, you know, how to go about playing and the business side of it, as far as booking and all of that. And it was just what we loved what we were doing. We were kids in high school, man, but we were out on the weekends making really good money, coming home to go to school Monday morning, man. Yeah, our pockets were full. We were buying clothes and everything we were doing. So it was a good time. I don't know too many other kids that were doing quite that much at that time.
Did
But
you do any events at your school too?
um, not at our school. I think we did one event. One by the time we got in, and my aunt was working with us. That's when we met Starlina. 'Cause my aunt was working at AT&T, and Starlina's sister was working there. And they were talking about, yeah, my nephew has a band, and we're doing a. She said, "Oh yeah, my sister sings," and so that kicked off, and we were looking for another female vocalist. So she came down to audition, and she came down and sang Natalie Cole's "Inseparable."
Mhm.
She came down and sang it. Went through it once. We played through it once. She sang the song once. We said, "Game over." That's the end. That's an end right there. She joined the band. It was just like that.
So
And look,
that's got to be like Curt 1975.
I want to say 75, 76,
Yeah.
somewhere right in there. Yeah, you're right. You're right on them. It could have been the end of 75, somewhere in there, right in there, 76, going into 76. Because by 76, we started playing this club over in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which was a spot where a lot of bands came out of. A little hole in the wall, but in those days, you had some of the best bands playing in those places. A place called Yours, Mine, and Ours. We used to play there over and over again. Quite we get booked there quite a bit, and it was just a great time. You just go there. There's bands playing everywhere, you know. So we
Cou-
met a lot of musician friends that way.
Couple questions, Curt. One is, did you feel comfortable right off sort of being a front person or the center of attention on stage, or did you have to kind of grow into that? Um, and who are some of the singers or players that you really looked up to and kind of emulated at that point?
Right. Okay. Well, I knew I was more of a singer first before I started playing guitar. I always sang as a kid, so I always knew I was going to sing something. I didn't know what, I was young, but so when it came to the bands, I was getting in a period where I was trying to focus on playing guitar and become a really good player and try to do as good as I can. And it seemed like every band that I got into, something would happen. And well, I had to be the main guy. I had to be the front gun singing. So, but I accompanied myself. But I played, but not as intensely as I would have had I just been playing guitar. So, but it was all for the good. It was all to balance me out, as I figured out later on. Because once I let go of the frustration of that and different things, I said, this is all probably good. This is what I should do, all of it, because after a while, I started feeling empty without one or the other. And I told my buddy Craig, I said, man, I realized that I wouldn't feel complete if I didn't do both now, and he understood that because we've been doing it that way for so long. Um, some of the vocalists that listened to and musicians that I listened to at the time, people that made me really want to do it, well, Marvin Gaye, long history with my family and everything. So that's one of the guys that made me truly want to do it. I grew up listening to Ray Charles in the house, and if he, I don't even have to tell anybody how amazing he was. I I can remember a time sitting there in the living room listening to some of the stuff my collection my dad had. He had an incredible jazz collection, and I was listening to Ray Charles. And I said, Dad, man, this guy. I said, Ray Charles, man, he just everything that comes out of his mouth sounds amazing. Even when he grunts, my father said, yeah, yeah, he's all brother. He's the real deal. So I did. That's the kind of stuff I grew up listening to. That Marvin Gaye, loved Al Green, Sly Stone. You know, grew up listening to Nat King Cole. Grew up listening to Billy Eckstine. Grew up listening to Frank Sinatra. Grew up listening to. There's a wide range of everything. Nancy Wilson, awesome vocalist. She just amazed me all the time. And then the Motown era came in. Every Supreme record, every Four Tops record, all the Stevie Wonder records, all the Marvin, all the Motown records. Man, I'd sit at the speaker, just listening to the sounds, and you try to picture what they looked like when they were doing that. And in those days, everything sounded like it had a lot of echo. And AM radio sounded like it had a little bit of echo to it. So I think we had cousin Brucey on WABC in New York, and he say, "Yeah, next coming up." Now as a kid, he said, "Next coming up, we got coming up playing for you is we got the Four Tops and we got the Supremes." And I said, "Wow." And I was a kid, I hadn't figured it out. It was radio yet. I said, "Wow, they're all going to be there and they're going to play." And it sounded like it was live because they had echo going on and everything. I said, "Wow." I just thought it was a live experience. It felt like it to me. You don't know. You just go by the picture your mind paints from the sound that you hear when you're a kid.
That's funny because nowadays half the performances in person aren't even live.
That's, that's right. That is so true. Yeah. Well, that's another interview. You can go a long way on that one. Boy,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Curt, we're in the mid 70s. You're sowing your oats. You're really getting rolling. Um, you got Starlena's involved. I think now she first got involved with the slave organization, or how'd you meet Steve Washington and what happened there?
Yeah, we met Steve Washington through my aunt. Aunt Penny brought him down to met him. She's getting gigs and making connections through people in clubs, and she met him. And I guess they struck up a conversation, and he told her what he was doing, and then so she brought him down to just so we can hear his perspective, and he said he would be glad to help work with us a little bit, and so he came down a couple rehearsals and checking things out and helping us do a few things, and then he and I, we were talking, and it's kind of clicked. I just thought it was inspiring. I was like, wow, he told me the whole deal of what his history was from, because a lot of people don't realize that now he's 1 year younger than I am. At this time, we're like, I want to say 17, 18 years old, and he had already been on the road with the Ohio players. His his uncle, his trumpet player and Ohio players, had a car accident and lost his teeth and couldn't tour with them for a while. So they call out Stevie and have him come to play with them. And he goes out on the road with them. And this dude was only 16 years old, but he was already a brilliant trumpet player, so he got a lot of road experience and got a lot of everything experience. And quiet as it's kept, while he was out there doing all of that and working with them, he met people out there, met different bands and musicians, and that's where and when he put together, got met the members, and they put together Slave.
The Ohio Players, Curt, were my first favorite band, so that's incredible.
Yeah, I go back to them. There's so many that I love, but there's a special connection with them. I always I would never miss their performances. Back in the days when we had in concert and midnight special, and you know, those guys were one of the rare successful R&B acts, and that crossed over in a time onto the pop charts without compromising their sound, trying to sound pop. They sound as soulful and as funky as they ever wanted to, jazzy sometimes, bluesy, the way they sounded, and they they did it all. And when you're a kid, you're coming up in junior high and high school, and you playing, and man, African American kid playing guitar. Jimi Hendrix had already passed away, and you got Sugarfoot on TV, really bringing it like that. You're like,
The double
man,
neck.
yeah, yeah. That was inspiring, man. That guy was just amazing to watch, and his sound, and
Big head. The hair looked like a microphone. Phil.
yeah, the big swoop fro, yeah, classy as cool, cool as he wanted to be, man. Just all of them. They were really great. They had different stages too. When they had Junie in the beginning, and then when uh, Billy Beck joined, man, the sound just kept on getting better and better. And I remember the first time I heard Skin Tight. I think I was in the backseat of the car with my mother and my aunt, and we were going to a bank, and we pull up to a drive-up window, and I'm sitting in the back seat. Summertime, it's kind of hot. Skin Tight comes on, and I was listening. I said, "That's right, the players got a new song out." And I heard that thing and played all the way through, and the keyboard solo, and that thing was so bad, it just stopped my world for more than 5 minutes. It was like I read a book that I couldn't put down. It was
Yeah.
kind of like that. I
That's the way
knew I
songs
heard,
could hit you back then.
yeah, I knew I heard something that was definitely defining where music was at and was changing some things. And players were that. Players were like that. They were very good. They were awesome.
So Steve was a diminutive guy. I've never met him in person, but that's what I understand. So what was your impression of him? What kind of personality did he have? And obviously he was very talented.
Oh yeah, very talented, man. Oh man, we had one of the bass players that we had at the time. We were learning. Everybody was learning. That was the time when Stevie Wonder released songs in the key of life. And man, and playing in clubs in those days, man, if you weren't playing "I Wish," you weren't doing much. And our bass player was he was doing it, but he was having a little difficulty with it. And Stevie was there, and he was watching it, and I think we were I think we were kind of like wanting to get a different bass player at the time, maybe. I From what I can remember, and he was having a little more difficulty than we wanted to, and just wasn't bringing that edge. And Stevie said, "Here, let me see. Where's the start? Boom, 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 boom." Start playing it and just played it note for note. We all just looked at each other. Our jaws just dropped. We just, wow. So wish you could come play with us, but he was good enough to come down and work with us all the time and share anything he could share. And so you fast forward a little bit, he started coming to our gigs and helping us. And then we had changed the name of the band from Symphonic Express to Star Child. And at that point, there was a legend bass player that was already a legend in Linden and in New Jersey. And his name was Raymond Jackson. And he grew up in our town. But like we were younger than a little bit, a couple years younger than him. He had already made this big name for himself that we were working hard at trying to do. And I don't know how it happened, but at some point he got a chance to hear us. And we told him we were looking for a bass player. And we asked him if he'd be interested. And he dug what he heard. He said, "Yeah, some young dudes from Linden, man, and yeah, my hometown, and y'all sound like you do. Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I'll join." And he joined us, and man, he had Now Ray Jackson played on all the Aurra records, and he's played the famous bass line for M2May and Juicy Fruit. That's Ray Jackson on all on the M2May, a lot of early M2May records. When
Okay.
M2May went solo, you know. So we had a sound. We had the sound that we were looking for. It felt like we were really coming on. And so by this time, now I'm going up forward and then I'm going back because I'm remembering things in segments and they're not connected sometimes because I remember. But we were down in my basement before, this is before Ray Jack got in the band. And when Stevie first started working with us, and he told me that he had a band and the name of it was Slave, and he said, "Yeah, we cut a record, cut an album. I'm just waiting for some contractual things to get straightened out with the record label." He said the record label was Atlantic. I said, "Really?" I said, "Atlantic." I said, "Wow, that's amazing. That's great," you know. And so he and come down, work with us every other night or whatever, however it was. And one night he comes down. I remember it was cold out, it was winter. He said, "It's done. We got it." I said, What'd you get?" He said, "All the contracts are worked out. Everything's done. The record's coming out." I said, "Really?" I said, "Man, I got excited." I said, "I can't, wow, that's awesome." He said, "And I got a reel to reel of it. You want to hear it?" I said, "Yeah, I got a reel to reel upstairs in my room." So we go up in my room and play it. And I made up my mind, man, this guy's so cool and he comes down and helps us so much and he's talented. Even if I'm not that crazy about this, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be definitely positive about it because he's gone further than any of us have ever gone. And so I was prepared for it to sound, all right, but it's a record and he got it done. Then the very first thing I heard when he started to reel was Slide. I, man, it went all the way through the track, and I was listening, and my jaw dropped, and the guitar solo was playing, and I just said to Stevie, I said, "That's your band, man?" He said, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "Wow, that's nice, man. That's really nice." I couldn't say nothing else. I said, "That was the most amazing thing that I had heard at that point in time." You know, I said, "Man, that sounded like radio right now and radio tomorrow." You know, it was just amazing.
I can only imagine, Curt, because I still remember when I first heard that on a small radio at the beach in California, and it just blew my mind, and it dominated my whole summer that year. That track was unbelievable. I had Steve Arrington on. I don't know if you've seen that show, and we talked about that a lot. And he just too remembered how he was blown away when he first heard it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That it was amazing. And see, that record came out and blew up so huge. They went out on tours with like the major acts of the time. I mean, you couldn't get no hotter than the people they were going out and touring with. Average White Band in their heyday. I mean, they were doing dates with these guys at major arenas. And so, and we were still playing in the clubs. But at this point in time, Stevie was taking on the responsibility of helping us and really helping us and trying to get us recorded to get a deal. So, as a morale booster, I'll never forget this and I'll never be able to thank him or the guys enough. When he came in off the road, he came to our gigs with in the time for us to set up in trucks with some of the slave equipment, the road cases that had the slave sticker on it. And he rolled them into the club for us so that could be around us while we were playing. Uh, Now you talk about young guys starting out, we're trying to get going, and he's doing this to support us and showing us that he's got our back. And it was like people were looking around seeing Slave on this, and they knew the record was huge already. You know, it's like, and we were like, I looked at my drummer, I said, "This is pretty hot shit here." He said, "I know." Yeah, but it was really incredible.
Curt, help me with the connection though. It's Jersey and Ohio, and how did was Was Steve in Ohio or in New Jersey or?
Stevie lived in New Jersey, but he went out to Ohio. But as I told you before, and he worked with the Ohio players,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and he started Slave out in Ohio, but because his uncle was part of the players, and they lived in Dayton, and
So,
but he was in school in Jersey, you
oh,
know.
so he kept going back and forth.
He went back. I think when he was on the road, I think he had tutors. I'm pretty sure. I think I can remember him saying that. I may not be accurate, but this was a while ago. But I think that's how he did most of it because he was brilliant, man. He was a sound. He still is. He's a sound guru. This guy had incredible methods of finding sound and getting sound. There's with Slave, you hear the sound, and the great Mark Adams, the bass player, his sound to me is as synonymous with Slave as Ronnie Isley's voice is with the Isley brothers. You know what I mean? It's that strong. And Mark Adams had the touch and the fever and the work ethic, and he just played things from the heart and made it look easy. And Stevie worked uh, behind the scenes of him electronically to really build and support and expand that sound. That sound got expanded. Stevie found the right speakers, wound up touring with Earthquake speakers. They were, I forget, but they were crossing over a certain cycle. They had the bass frequencies were reaching, they were so low when you recorded them in the studio and when you played live that the frequencies were so low that you couldn't hear them, but you could feel them. And that's the kind of mind that Steve Washington has. I mean, it it's on another level, man. It's something to behold. I was just in awe every day that he just wanted me to be a part of it, wanted me to be around. I mean, we did what we he was working with our band, and eventually um, our band kept playing. Starlina left and went with Stevie and Slave uh, at that time, and I said, well, I got to stay. I'm the captain of this ship. Me and the drummer, we kind of started this. I felt like I'm going down with the ship, try to get this band going, and Stevie still tried to help us and get a deal. But eventually, as time went on, we played clubs, and then the band started to, the members started to separate. I think the bass player had to go to California, and we never really found a bass player to fill Ray Jack's shoes the way we wanted it. And so it just kind of sat idle until it just wasn't doing anything anymore. We just weren't. And at that time, I was working right.
Because I think I'm going to show this, Curt. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think this was Star's first record,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
You
Right.
weren't there yet, but she hopped on this one, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Her and Steve Arrington on
yeah.
that.
So this was the second one after the slide record.
No, this is the third one. This is
There,
the
oh,
third
the Harness of the World was second.
one. Yes. Hardness of the World was second.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, third one.
And yeah, Stellar Funk came off of that. And at that time, when our band had split and we weren't doing anything, we were all working jobs and everything. I think I was working and I was working in a bank in Linden, and just as a second job, just cleaning up after the day was over. Just make sure that everything was clean up, swept the floors and all that. But I had access to phones. Nobody was in there, and so one day I don't know what made me do it. I called Stevie up, and he said, "Hey man, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, yeah, man." He said, "Man, I was just thinking about you," and I was like, "Come on, man. Everybody always says that when but." He said, "No, man, I really was thinking about you. I wanted you to come up. I want to have a meeting with you. I got some things I want to show you." And I said, "Okay." So I go up the next day, I think, and have the meeting, and he had laid out on paper, and true to his word, he had been thinking about this for quite a while. It was all structured out on paper, everything. The production company that he had with Slave, Starlina, Steve Arrington, and myself being a part of the production company. but he purposely did not want to sign us into the group's recording contract because he wanted us to be able to get independent record deals. You know, same way George Clinton did with all, the different talent that he had. And Stevie had the same sort of outline. So I was supposed to do a record, and Steve Arrington was going to do one. Starlina was, and we started doing this. And but in the meantime, we would work with Slade, and we go on tour, play with the band, rehearse with the band, then got to record with the band, got to sing, and I was surprised that I got to write. He let me write stuff. Started writing songs with them, and then by the time Stone Jam came, I got to do some writing and even got in on a song or two and got to do some production stuff and call some shots, on some stuff that we were doing. And just not really cost, but just be creative. We were feeding off of each other's energy because we went out on tour on the Just a Touch of Love album. We went out for a long time and we had gelled. So when we came off the road, the stuff that was happening with Stone Jam, some of the stuff almost could write itself just because we had gelled on the road. And some of the grooves we would get into in sound check and just ideas that we had, man, just stuff that started coming back to us in the studio. And it was just like finishing each other's sentence speaking, on a lot of that stuff. It's amazing.
Let me jump in for a second because you went through some important musical history right there. Just a Touch of Love, I think it's 78 or 79.
79.
79. So that really was a milestone record for Slave because Just a Touch was, I would say, their biggest sort of kind of crossover-y kind of sounding hit at that time, and got club play and things like that. And there's a lot of different kinds of things on that album that they really hadn't done before, more of a pop R&B sensibility rather than just straight funk. And I also really like that track Shine on that record too.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was just us reaching for something musical without thinking about what category or whatever. We were just going for it and trying to find everything that we went through. The music was there, then the vocals, we were reaching the concept that I was trying to approach with the vocals I was doing, and we were just reaching for something to take things up, take the listener to another level in that song, and it felt just like that's what was happening when we were recording it. Some amazing stuff. Watching Mark Adams play bass on that, watching Danny Webster and Drac play guitars on that, Steve Arrington on drums. It's just incredible, man. I'd sit there and watch them cut, and then what and this song Roots on Just a Touch. We did it at the House of Music in West Orange, New Jersey. That was kind of our home base. And Charlie Conrad and Irene Conrad, they were wonderful people. They that was a home for a lot of people. It was a special place. You can go there and record, and you didn't have to worry about whether you were going to accomplish what you were going to trying to do because it was going to get done. And if you needed something, it would happen. And one of the examples was in Just a Touch of Love album. We wanted to add some horns to it. We had the horn section, but we wanted to add some. And they put the word out. I think Charlie Conrad, or I think Charlie Conrad got through to them, but we got the Brecker brothers, Alan Rubin, Lou Delgado, John Faddis. These guys that played on Saturday Night Live and the horn section. They came in, they knew of Slave and they heard some of the stuff. They liked it. They said, yes, we do the session. They came and did the session. They did some extra horn tracks on there. And I'm sitting there, and John Tropez, the great John Tropez guitarist, was conducting the horns. And I'm sitting there in Studio A, just all I needed was a bag of popcorn because this was watching some amazing stuff, man. I'm talking about the Brecker brothers, man. I couldn't even speak. I was just watching these guys and the way they approached it, and everything was so airtight. It was just beautiful, man. It was just amazing stuff like that. Moments you never forget. You know.
So how much in like that record in crafting it was it Steve Washington versus like, what was Jimmy Douglas's role and how did that come together?
Yeah, Jimmy Douglas is wow. You said a huge name there. Jimmy Douglas is a legend, man. This guy, he's just he's just there's no expiration life for his expiration date for his brilliance. I mean, he's worked with so many and any and everybody. There's nothing he hasn't seen or done. And when we were working with us, it was just exciting. Stevie was the had the vision and laid the blueprint out of what we were doing. We said everybody would fall in, we get it together. The guys had their ideas. It was a pool of creativity. And Stevie kind of oversaw it and made sure that it got produced properly. Jimmy was right there as the engineer, making sure everything got handled properly. And then Jimmy and Stevie would mix. Sometimes I just, I don't know how to use words for it. And it was like, you just had to be there to see it. It was more of a,
Chemistry.
yeah, yeah. It's hard to put into words that, but it was brilliance at its highest. You know, and then, it's brilliance because they would sit there and make it look so easy. You know,
Mm.
and great people do that. They make things that aren't so easily understood look like it's easy. They made it look like they were breathing air.
Did, did you relocate at any time to that Ohio area or you stayed in the Jersey area?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I said, did you relocate at any point to the Ohio area or did you stay in the
Oh,
Jersey area?
oh no, I stayed in New Jersey. Yeah,
Okay.
but we went out to Ohio to rehearse for the tours, and I went out to Dayton with the guys, and we rehearsed and went out on the road when Just a Touch was the first album I was on with them, and after finishing that, um, got the word we were going out, and I think the first dates were like in late December or early January. I can remember it was cold. It was Christmas time, and we were rehearsing. And the first tour was with the OJs and Phyllis Hyman. Uh, and this was the OJs when they had the full orchestra. And man, just show after show. Man, I just told you where I come from with the bands, and just loving people that made me want to do it. And all of a sudden, you're on the road with some of the people that you sat and listened to the records and wondered if you can ever even buy a ticket to their show.
Mm.
And so I'm sitting here playing and open up for some of them, and we're playing on the bill, and I'm getting to see this. And I'm just like, this is special stuff. Eddie Levert, man, oh my God, he would tear the stage up every night. That guy, man, that was amazing watching that. And then Phyllis Hyman, God rest her soul, she was as beautiful as you ever wanted. She's like a goddess on stage. And I remember one of the shows we finished, and Drax called me and said, "Come on, man, let's go downstairs and meet Phyllis," because he had evidently he met her and started talking with her. And so we went downstairs, and she gave us a signed picture, 8 by 10, and she's just as sweet as she can be. And I'm this young guy, and she's this goddess. So I was just like gaga. I was like, oh, I couldn't even find words, man. She had just blown the stage away and just sang her heart out, and did some stuff with her later on too with Aurra, and amazing story. She was a every bit of a professional. I'll never forget. We did an outdoor concert in North Carolina with her, with Aurra, and her, I forget, a few other Daz band. They were on the bill, and she, we had played our show, and we were standing down at the bottom of the stairs. These festivals are outdoors, and her limo was right there, and we were all like kind of standing around her limo, and she got out and she was getting ready to go on, and something happened. She turned and did something, and somebody closed the door on her finger of the limo. Everybody froze. She was like, "Oh my God!" And it was like you could tell she was in excruciating pain. It was time for her to go on. This woman got herself together, took a breath, climbed the steps, and got up on that stage, walked around on that stage, took her shoes off. You thought you were in her living room, and she sang to you and sang every note and just delivered the most amazing show. All of us down watching her on the side were just amazed by her performance, and we forgot about everything that happened. And then she comes down the steps and then holding their hand and say, "Okay, let's go to the hospital," and something to that effect. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. We forgot all about she'd hurt her hand. She did such an amazing show." I said, "Well, take your notepad out, guys. That was professionalism at its highest level right there." You know,
Wow,
yeah.
amazing. So what was it like among the other fellas in Slave and with you? I mean, did it welcome you with open arms, and were they kind of like brothers? Did you guys do anything together, or was it sort of just a professional relationship? What was it like?
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of like a second family kind of thing. We kind of had each other's back. We Because Stevie had made them aware of who I was before I joined, and as he did with Starlina with them, and they knew that I worked with Starlina in my band, and they heard of everything that Stevie told them that I was bringing to the table, and so I think it was one of the days we were upstairs in his room where we had all the meetings at, all of the branch from Ohio, our name for them was the brothers. We said, "Well, the brothers are coming." I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay." So that I get to meet them. I had met them before because when Stevie was supporting us in Star Child, we got to go to a couple of their rehearsals when they were rehearsing for some of those tours when they were going out with Slide and all of that. So I'd met the guys. I met Danny. I met Track. Met Adams. Met the original members. But this is them coming, and we're getting ready to start working on Just a Touch of Love together. And so they come out, and the recording dates were set at the House of Music, and we started recording. They came out and uh, came up. They came up to the third floor. All of them were coming up, and I was already up there. And I think the moment I'll never forget. I think I put it in a post after his passing. But Mark Adams came up, and he remembered me. They all remembered me from when we were doing it, and he said. He just had a smile on his face, man. He came up and shook my hand. He said, "Welcome aboard, man. Welcome aboard." I was like, I said, "Wow, okay, that's cool, man. That's cool." Because this dude was already making a name for himself. I mean, just you could tell it was something that he had and what he was doing. I mean, he was playing bass and he was playing funk, but there were a lot of other people doing it, but they didn't sound like him. There's something that made you remember him, you know. And he and Stevie together worked on that sound and made it unforgettable.
Yeah, well, at first I thought it was just him, but I've come over the years to realize that Steve played a, if not equal, close to it role in creating that sound.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
They were brilliant talents. I mean, uh, one of the most uh, Drac did solo on Slide, which was brilliant, and you could just feel him. You knew he loved Jimi Hendrix. You knew he loved Ernie Isley. He had a feel, but he had something of his own, and he had his own way of speaking with his voice through the guitar. One of the most undersung cats is Danny Webster in the band. I mean, when you hear some of the things that kind of like that are on the brilliance of like what Prince does with guitars and stuff and vocals, uh, Danny Webster was kind of like already there back when I met him he was doing some pretty amazing stuff on guitar. And he was a big fan of Sly and Freddie Stone. And he had this thing, and the thing would touch. I think one of the biggest things that I got from him, because on the first tour, we roomed together. And so we were in the hotel, so we just pull out the guitars and start playing. And he said, "Yeah, play with me on this." And we play stuff, and I and I noticed this certain touch that he had, and it also broadened. I understood that the guitar was a touch sensitive instrument, but something that he was doing definitely helped me connect with certain things. And I heard what he was doing. It was the way he approached it, the way his touch was. He came up with some brilliant lines and rhythms, and then he had this voice thing, and he had the falsetto voice, and then he had the low voice. So like all of that deep baritone and high falsetto kind of thing. He was doing that a while ago, and I don't think he ever, in my mind, I don't think he ever got a chance to really, be heard with all of the ideas that he had that he could do, because he had so much within him, man. I said, man, that's like he played something for me. I said, man, why don't you record that? You know, he was just awesome, man. The guy's he's still playing today. I can communicate with him from time to time, through Messenger or whatever we talk. Just little general stuff. But he was a guy that we got once we locked in and got with each other, we felt like a family. We kind of had our each other's back on the road, and we were feeding off each other's energy. There was so much talent in that group that
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah.
it had to disband at some point, and different people had to find a way. Because I mean, you have so much water in a pipe before it breaks. It's like eventually it has to find its own way. And I that's the best way I can explain that. Steve Arrington can attest to that, because he and I talk all the time about that. And I mean, there was a time we did when we finished the Stone Jam album, it was done, and I think we were in the studio recording Aurra, the Are You Single record, and it was I think somebody told me that they got a call from Atlantic. Stevie got a call from Atlantic or something, and Stone Jam was out. It was making its way, and people were really getting acquainted with it. And Atlantic said that we got a message from Stevie Wonder, and he said that he thought that Stone Jam was one of the most innovative records that he's heard that year in a while. Man, nobody could say anything. Everybody froze. We were like, "You gotta be kidding me, man!" Stevie Wonder. Wow, that was moments like that. That's priceless, man. How do you you can't make that stuff up.
So, I was a fan with Slave from Slide On, and I got every record when it came out. I used to take multiple buses from Santa Monica, California, all the way to the Crenshaw district to get the records as soon as they came out. And because it would take a little longer to get around to where I lived for them to have it in the store, and I wanted it right away. But when this one came out, I just, as soon as to me, it was easily the most complete, consistent Slave record to that point, and it just fired on all cylinders. It's just great from start to finish. Everything in it just works so well. It's got variety, and everything it tries, it succeeds with.
Wow. Well, thanks for that. It was a. I don't even know how to put it into words. Like I said, a lot of it came off from the energy that we had established working with each other on the road and getting to know each other and really clicking. And it just kind of everything just kind of found its place. Um, I worked on certain songs, uh, certain songs that that I didn't sing. I mean, I think one of the songs, Starting All Over, I think I kind of helped set the verses up with that. And I was talking with Brother Sly, Floyd Miller, man, and incredible percussionist, trombonist, vocalist if he wanted to be. He just that I don't think he ever pushed himself to sing anything like, but I said, come on, man, you can sing this. And because he and I had a great rapport, and at first I think he might have been a little apprehensive, but he just jumped on it and sang it like he'd been singing all his life. And I said, man, you should have been singing stuff way more than you're doing. Look at a great voice, man.
It's that talent thing again.
He's amazing, man. And this guy is an artist. I mean, he would draw pictures that look like modern Johnny Quest Jetsons cartoons, but modern. Like, and then some of the later Slave albums that you saw, like with the one with Party Lights on it and Wait for Me.
Showtime.
Yeah, that's his drawing. That's his art. That's the kind of vision he had. Man, he was brilliant. He is brilliant. He's still doing stuff that's brilliant. I know he is. We communicate here and there from time to time as well. Everybody had their pool of talent. Everybody had something special. Their own thing that made the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Tom Lockett just had there's something about what he did was special. There's something about what everybody did was special. Ray Turner on keyboards, amazing keyboard player. Man, Stone Jam, people think that's a guitar solo. That's Ray Turner on a mini Moog playing solo. It's amazing. And while he was playing, he was closing his eyes and mimicking himself playing guitar with the other hand so he can get the feel of playing a guitar licks with his keyboard, playing keyboard with the right hand and air guitaring the neck of a guitar with his left hand while he's playing it. It was brilliant to watch. And He was just killing it. It was just incredible. Yeah.
Did the band rehearse much, or did you just kind of go to the studio and create how much were these songs kind of fully formed before going into the studio?
Well, they had rehearsal sessions, and they had where they laid the music out and picked the ideas that they were going to do. Yeah, Stevie worked with them all the time, and they got the ideas and they brought them to life in the studio. Yeah. And then those days, you got to remember, pre-production was a big thing. So then we did that with Aurra too. The ideas we had, maybe we would start recording it. Like I remember Stevie and I coming up with our single. And he and I sitting in a room on the floor with an open face little cassette player that had an open mic. And he had a bass and I had a guitar. And we were just jamming, coming up with grooves, coming up with ideas. We came up with that one. And we said, yeah, that's hot. We're going to make that work. We're going to do something with that. And that was the blueprint of it. And then get together with the band and put people on instruments, and we start playing it and feeling it out, and it comes together. Well, then in those days you had pre-production, so we had 4-track tape machines. So we recorded our ideas pre-production. And then once you did that, then you had to re-record it over again when you go to the studio, on a 2-inch tape, so by the time you got to the studio, you had already recorded it once on pre-production, and you already had a run through of how you wanted certain things to feel. The familiarity and the repetition is like rehearsing a show. Then when it's time to do it in the studio, you're not wondering what you're going to do. You got the paintbrush out. Now you get a chance to just kind of create and paint, colors the way you're feeling. You can feel it instead of having to remember, because it's already in you. It's inherent. Everything you've been through it enough that you don't have to read the lyrics. You don't have to do none of that. We knew what we were going to, the foundation of what we wanted to do. We were free to deliver it in a fashion that we wanted to deliver it.
Of course, Stone Jam had the big hit "Watching You," which I was glad for, because that helped bring the record to a bigger audience, which was great. So as we kind of close the chapter on Slave, because I don't think you were on any Slave records after Stone Jam. Is that correct?
Right. After Stone Jam, that's when we set focused on Stevie, myself, Sarlina, and Tom Lockett. We started setting this blueprint out to do the Aurra record.
So before we talk more about Aurra, Curt, what with Slave on those two records are you most proud of or is the most meaningful to you?
Each song had its own sweet spot in my heart because it just captures that energy that we had and a special time. Just a touch. When I heard that, I said, "Wow, this is this feels like a huge record." And I wouldn't even I wouldn't experience enough to know what a hit was by any industry standards. I just knew that to me that that should be on the radio. That was a hit, you know. And, it did what it did. You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
So so now why did you guys break off onto your own? I mean, I know you said that was kind of the plan all along, but why did it happen how it happened?
um, well, things have journeys have a beginning, a middle, and sometimes and an end. And the energy that was in that band, there was so much of it and so much talent that eventually things were going to. It's like explained to you, the water finding its own way. If you close off water from one going one way, it's not going to just stop going. It's going to find another way. And that's what talent and creative energy does. And sometimes creative energy will shift the form, maybe the form that what you might want to call a physical form or what you see it as, and it just may need to express itself in a different way as it grows. It can't. If you're staying in the same mode that you're doing all the time, you're staying in a comfort zone, and that may be a comfortable place to be, but there's not a lot of growth going on in comfort zones.
Mhm.
And the energy that we had was young, and creative energy we had. We were young and full of drive, and we were. It's like painting a picture or artists painting pictures or whatever, or songwriters writing whatever. It's like, okay, what can we do next? What this I feel this I want to do this, and there was so many different things that actually it just had to be. It just went the way it went because it had to. It just
Yeah.
had to. Slave was not going to stop. It should have kept going, and it did. But new things came out of that, and it should have because it was just too much to stifle. You couldn't. There's no way that we could just stay one thing all our lives. It's.
And you guys are still all friendly?
For the most part, but don't speak. There's some people I'm not in communication with, but I think everybody's doing fine. Or they're doing good. There's no bad blood or nothing like that. But some of the people I am in communication with, and it's just good to see them doing stuff and the things, and see I'm trying to keep out there, and I see what they're doing, and I was like, yeah, right on, man. Keep plugging, keep doing what you do.